And Thursday sunny with the high around 55. Cafe Latte is a hot spot for American eats and house-made desserts in a cafeteria-style setup plus a pizza and wine bar. Cafe Latte believes ingredients matter, so that's why they never use artificial flavors, colors, or preservatives. Dine in at the restaurant off Victoria and Grand in St. Paul or place a takeout order at cafelatte.com.
Portions of the following program may be pre-recorded. It's the Matt McNeil Show on the Civic Media Radio Network. I am not Matt McNeil. I'm Todd Mikkelson, sitting in for Matt, who's still on vacation. He'll be on vacation. He'll be coming back next Wednesday. So, Brett, do you know where he is?
Locations undisclosed, I believe.
Yeah.
It could even include the Twin Cities, so he could be anywhere.
Right. Patrick thinks that he's heading to the outer portions of the solar system. Did you hear anything about that?
He must have a connection then with Elon Musk, getting those getting up into space.
Maybe. I don't know. It sounds like he's using a method that is impossible in the third dimension. So I'm thinking he's using some sort of other transport from possibly a different dimension, because Patrick thought he was by Jupiter just yesterday, and that would be impossible.
Well, I know Matt's into sci-fi stuff, so it makes sense. He could probably get access to that type of technology.
Maybe he's just doing it all in his head, and he's just like sitting in his room meditating.
Very well, yeah. That's why we say locations undisclosed. He could be anywhere,
and somehow he's connecting to Patrick as well, which is, we're gonna have to talk to him about this. I think we should have an interview with him about it. So, Matt, even though you're on vacation, call in and let's interview you about what the hell.
Oh, be careful what you wish for. He might.
Yeah, right.
I'll see the call coming in 2 minutes. Yeah, I heard you guys wanted to talk to me.
Is call number 1 current?
That one is not. No.
Okay, yeah, that's from yesterday. I keep getting thrown off by those. Wow. We have a lot to talk about as per usual. One thing that I was thinking about is that I kind of feel like, I'm talking about a lot of this stuff, and I realize that 98% of our listeners, or maybe less, I don't know. We did have a conservative call in on Monday, so there are some conservative people who might disagree with a lot of what I'm saying, who listen, and we are in this third 3 o'clock hour being broadcast throughout a large portion of Wisconsin as well. And, but for the most part, I kind of wonder, like, I'm just preaching to the choir, right? But really, I don't feel like I'm just preaching to the choir. What I feel like we're doing here at AM 950 on all of the shows, David Packman, Tom Hartman, Stephanie Miller, all the shows, we're trying to bring information that maybe you, because you're not a political freak like we are, have not heard. So hopefully it's informative, and we're bringing you some new stories, and also use it as a guide on how to talk out in the world to people who disagree or don't get it, or maybe are thinking of voting for Republicans. Maybe you can convince some voters that would be a huge mistake. And please feel free to use anything you can remember that I might have said that you heard me say here in your argument, and you do not need to give me credit. Just take the credit yourself. So hopefully that's what we're doing. I hope, as you're listening, I hope that you keep that in mind. It's not that, I know more than you do, or we know more than you do, or we're smarter than you do. It's just that I'm a complete political freakazoid who spends way too much time burying myself in this information. And so I thought, maybe what I should do is go on a radio station and talk about it so that other people can be exposed to it too. And still, then you are open to live a normal, mentally healthy life and still be informed while I do the deep dive in my mentally unhealthy obsession with all of this stuff. So that's what we're doing here. And I mentioned yesterday that, or maybe it was Monday, I don't know, that I was talking to a friend recently, a really close friend, old friend of mine, dating back to the late 70s. And we were talking a lot about this, and because he is more mentally healthy than me and not as much of a political freak, he was kind of asking me about what I was thinking is going to happen in these elections. And I'm very optimistic about what's going to happen in these elections. And I'm seeing that the closer we're getting, it's looking more and more scary. If you just watch TV, if you watch news, if you watch some cable shows, even the left-leaning, if you want to call it that, shows like maybe shows on MSNBC, they're making it more scary. I don't necessarily mind that because I want people to be motivated to vote. I don't want Democrats thinking, "Oh, wow, we're so far ahead in the polls. If I don't actually vote, it should be okay." I don't want anyone to feel that way. But they're still going by polls, and you've been hearing me talking about that. I just don't see polls as being accurate, and they in fact have not been accurate in 2018 and 2020. And everybody's just been so surprised at voter turnout, and everyone's been surprised that Democrats are winning as much as they are. In 2018, in the state of Minnesota, we turned 19 Minnesota State House seats from red to blue. Nobody expected that. I think maybe optimistic expectations were maybe 10 less than that. And that was optimistic. And again, I say two words, Kansas ass. Or is it Kansas? Either way, nobody saw Kansas coming this summer. Nobody saw 2018 coming. Nobody saw 2020 coming. Nobody thought Joe Biden was going to get 8 million more votes than Donald Trump. I think people felt pretty confident that Joe Biden was going to win, but still, there were a lot of people that were just scaring the crap out of us. And there were a lot of people I know saying, Trump's going to win again, and he didn't. He got trounced. And it's all about voter turnout. And again, I point out young people. Young people are not a part of these polls. So, in the 1800s, before there were trains even, campaigning was completely different, obviously. They couldn't even travel around. Running for president, you didn't travel around the whole country. Then trains started, Stevens, I'm not going to remember the name or the exact year. I think it was the late 1850s, and there was a guy running for president, and he did it the entire campaign from his porch. He didn't even want to leave his house. He would go out on his porch, and people would gather, and he would do speeches on his porch. So, the methodology of campaigning needs to be reinvented every once in a while. And I think we're at another time and place where that needs to happen. We've been relying on polls where people conduct polls by usually calling people. Been doing that now for 100 years, and it's not working anymore. I don't know if anyone's been noticing, but polls have been getting worse and worse, certainly starting about 20 years ago, when more and more people have cell phones and more people get rid of their landlines, and more younger people then become of voting age. And of course, they've never even seen a landline in person, and they don't pick up their cell phone because, you got to imagine their world is completely different than ours was. People, if you remember having a landline, I mean, you got calls from people you didn't know all the time because it was your phone number. You would get calls, people trying to sell you stuff. You'd get calls, people trying to ask you questions. You'd get, all kinds of calls. And, again, my daughter's 19. She's even a little in the older part of that, of the new generation, where they've never, ever experienced anything like that. To them, when she got her cell phone, we told her she couldn't get a cell phone until, I think it was, we might have said 10th grade, or maybe it was 9th grade. And I think she was in 7th or 8th grade. And, she was playing softball and doing all these things. And sometimes softball would end early, and she would borrow a friend's phone to call us and say, hey, it ended early. Can you come and get me? And she started to feel kind of ostracized because she was the only one without a cell phone. So, but we were like, no, we're not going to give you a cell phone. And she did a PowerPoint presentation. She developed a PowerPoint presentation and convinced us that, yes, okay, you need a cell phone. And the thing that convinced me was she said, Dad, there aren't like pay phones like you see on old TV shows. They don't exist anymore. And I'm like, oh, that's a good point. So you have no way of communicating with us unless there's somebody else around with a cell phone. So when she got her cell phone, it's her own personal cell phone. She puts her friends' numbers in and she puts our numbers in. And if she gets a call that's from a different number, she doesn't answer it. So she's almost impossible to be polled. And she is now of voting age. So the demographic of the age 18, certainly 18 to 25, is pretty much impossible to poll those people. They're pretty much 100% not a part of any of these polls that you're seeing where, oh, Kerry Lake is ahead by 1 point and Herschel Walker, oh man, he's winning. How can that be? It's like, who are you asking in your polls? Is it just super old people who think Herschel Walker is still a football player because they're answering their landlines? I mean, so I'm very optimistic about this. And we're just barely starting to see that what I'm saying might very well be true. There's a guy I just saw this before I came here. His name is Santiago Mayer. He's the executive director for something called Voters Tomorrow. And he wrote a text that said, we're already seeing significant increases in youth turnout when compared to 2018, which was a blowout. So we're going to come back and be optimistic when we come back. You're listening to the Matt McNeil Show on the Civic Media Radio Network. I'm Todd Mikkelson, sitting in for Matt. We'll be right back.
Hey, it's Patrick. Football season is building up, and so is the nastiness in your carpets and air ducts. It's time to call Zero Res and beat the holiday rush. Every surface Zero Res does is specifically designed to preserve and maximize the life of your investments in your home. But also ask yourself before you turn on your furnace, do you know how much built-up dirt, dander, and other allergens are hiding in your air duct system? With Zero Res this month, the more you buy, the more you save. Get 3 rooms of carpet clean starting at just $139 or 5 rooms starting at $199. That's a 43% savings. Book now to get the best carpet cleaning deal of the season. And don't forget about your air ducts. Help your furnace perform its best this winter by removing all the nasty dirt, dander, and harmful debris from your HVAC system. Plus, Zero Res will give you $75 off any air duct cleaning package. Call 952-ZERO-RES or visit ZeroResMinnesota.com to schedule your appointment today.
Habitation presents a radio drama.
But soft, what light in yonder window breaks? It is the east, and it's ruining my sleep.
Oh, come on, honey. Do you have to be so dramatic? We can get some window treatments.
Fabulous! Habitation now carries Hunter Douglas window treatments. They can help us pick the perfect shade.
Habitation Design, located in the District Edina, 7777 Washington Avenue South. Habitation, put some drama into your interior design.
Cafe Latte offers made-from-scratch soups, salads, sandwiches, and mouth-watering desserts.
So come check out their pizza and wine bar, or get a treat from the bakery made fresh daily. Plus, you can still do online ordering and takeout, along with gift cards. Just go to cafelatte.com and choose from their ever-changing selection of award-winning salads, sandwiches, and soups. Cafe Latte is located off Victoria and Grand and online at cafelatte.com.
Yes, on AM 950. And many other stations in Wisconsin that are under the Civic Media Radio Network. You're listening to the Matt McNeil Show. I'm Todd Mikkelson, sitting in for Matt, who's still on vacation. And now we figured out that he's sitting in a room meditating, and in his head he is beyond Jupiter, and somehow he can connect to Patrick, who is also an employee here. And Patrick knows where he is, because they're communicating telepathically now, is what I'm is what makes the most sense, actually. So I was talking about this thing. I mentioned voters of tomorrow. We are a Gen Z-led movement that engages, educates, and represents youth in politics. And their pinned tweet is, "They pissed off the wrong generation." So help me. I think I am just slightly not a baby boomer. Do you know where the year cutoffs are?
I think it's like the late 60s for baby boomers, if not even mid 60s.
Well, it's early 60s.
Early 60s, okay.
And then what's next? Millennials?
It goes Gen X.
Gen X and then millennials?
Yeah, millennials are, depending on your definition, early or mid 80s for birth dates.
Okay. And then, so Gen Z is like people who are 19 to 25, right?
Yeah, pretty much people who are, yeah. I think they cut off millennials maybe like late 90s. Then, from then on, it's all Gen Z.
It's scary that we're on Gen Z because there are no more letters left.
I've heard they're like going with Greek letters. Like the next one is the Alpha generation, which is an interesting name.
Yeah.
The Alpha generation. Yeah.
Yeah. That's misguiding people, I think. We'll worry about that later. But it's kind of like the Mayan calendar when it ended in 2012 and everyone thought the world was going to end. It's like when Gen Z is over, or is it just going to, I don't know. Nobody more will be born.
Maybe that will be the case too. Yeah.
Which would be helpful for planet Earth, actually.
It could be. And then we kind of get in that Handmaid's Tale kind of stuff with what
Republicans
may try to do.
And that's exactly why we're talking about voting. You got to get out and vote, or the United States is going to be the Handmaid's Tale. But anyway, wow, how deep in the weeds are we now? So voters of tomorrow, this guy who's the executive director, Santiago Mayer, and I just, before we went to break, I mentioned that with their organization, he is saying that we're already seeing significant increases in youth turnout when compared to 2018. It's still early, but a youth wave is materializing. That's what he's saying. And going down, somebody else I saw wrote that, and then a woman said, the Georgia early voting numbers are awesome, running ahead of vote totals for 2020 presidential election, which also is a huge deal just because this is midterm election. And we usually have lower turnout in a midterm election. And of course, the more turnout there is, the more the Democrats win, because the vast majority of Americans are Democrats and liberal or progressive. We don't want to stay put or go backwards. We want to progress. We want to make progress. We want to progress. So anyway, so yes, I'm very optimistic about the numbers. And again, in having this friend talk to me, he called me on my way here. The same guy I was talking about, where he was asking me, because he was getting nervous seeing all these polls and everything, and was asking me what I think. And I said, oh, it's going to be a blue blowout. And he's like, really? And he was really surprised. And then I said, I think we're going to gain seats in the House. And he said, really? Because I'm hearing that we may lose the House, and if we hold it, we'll barely hold it. And I'm like, yeah, we're going to gain seats in the House. And he said, do you think we hold the Senate then? And I said, I think we gain 6 seats in the Senate. And I am sticking to that. So because of what I'm talking about. And by the way, Michael Moore, who's a complete pessimist when it comes to Democrats in elections, he thinks it's going to be a blue tsunami. He thinks everyone's going to be surprised. And so do I. They're going to be surprised just like they were in 2018, just like they were in 2020, and just like they were when Kansas voted this summer. And it's because people are super riled up. There is another, I wanted to mention, that's when we're on this subject, actually, that is from Minnesota Reformer. And basically, I was surprised at their title because it says young adults apathetic about Minnesota elections, survey finds. First of all, how are they doing the survey? Secondly, the numbers, the chart they have, the different categories, it comes out at 72%. This is ages 18 to 35, I believe. 72% say they will definitely vote, and 48% say they are extremely motivated to vote. That seems really high to me. That seems like they're passionate to vote and they're going to make sure they do vote. I don't know why they would title this young adults apathetic about Minnesota elections. Maybe they meant maybe they left maybe they meant EM instead of A. Maybe it's empathetic. No, but it is apathetic. So I think the framing that a lot of media is doing, it seems like they're just trying to keep ratings going or something. They're trying to keep the horse race going. Somebody else tweets, if Dems are so bad at messaging, why are all our candidates beating the brakes off of their opponents in the debates? Dems don't have a messaging problem. They have a media coverage problem. Dems in array is bad for ratings, and the media needs you to keep watching and clicking. I totally agree with that. So when I'm in that world, when I'm seeing this stuff online, when I'm doing research for this show, or when I'm watching things on cable shows and, political shows, and they're all talking about this stuff and they're talking about polling, even I start to get like, wow, I'm starting to get a little nervous. What's going on? Did everyone forget about Roe v. Wade? I mean, what are people, are they not paying attention anymore? Like, I know Matt McNeil says that Democrats don't pay attention, longer than like sauerkraut left in the sun, right? And not sauerkraut, sour cream. Yeah. He says stuff like that. And, that I think that used to be true. I don't think it is anymore. And I think 2018 and 2020 have proven that. And I think it's going to be, and Kansas proved it. And other primary elections this summer, turnout and everything. And I really think 2020 is going to prove that Democrats aren't like that anymore. But even I lose it sometimes. And when I'm in that world, listening to those people, I start to get nervous. And then I'll talk to my daughter or get a tweet from her or something. And then I'm reminded of her generation. And it's like, no, they're going to save us. Gen Z is going to save us all from ourselves, actually, at least from my generation. But so my optimism remains then when I'm reminded of the young people and how we have pissed them off with climate change and Roe v. Wade. They are adequately pissed off. They are registering in record amounts, and they're going to show up. It's the Civic Media Radio Network Matt McNeil Show. We'll be right back.
Hi, folks. This is Kirk Bankstad from Wisconsin's Minocqua Brewing Company, and our progressive beer is now available in Minneapolis. Yes, you Vikings can now buy Biden beer, Bernie Brew, AOC IPA, and Kamala, a strong vice presidential stout, without having to travel across the border. And the best news yet is that 5% of the proceeds of each beer you buy go to keeping Wisconsin blue.
Drink progressively with Minocqua Brewing. Get their progressive beers at Top 10 Liquors in both Cottage Grove and Plymouth. Find other Twin Cities locations at MinocquaBrewingCompany.com.
This is Ross Stadheim, partner at MJSB Employment Justice. At our firm, we specialize in cases where our clients tried to do the right thing by reporting illegal or unethical conduct and were demoted or fired. There are laws in place that protect people like you who tried to do the right thing by reporting a problem but were retaliated against. At MJSB Employment Justice, we are fearless advocates who will protect your rights and obtain justice, whether it be a Fortune 500 company or something smaller.
Be heard. You deserve better. Contact us today at mjsbjustice.com.
Hey, Minnesota, I'm Rick Smith, host of The Rick Smith Show, and I want to hear from you. Call in, be heard at 1-866-416-RICK. That's 1-866-416-7425 as we focus on the issues most important to working America. The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk. Weeknights, 8 to 10 p.m. right here on AM 950 KTNF, the progressive voice of Minnesota.
Is your remote workforce putting your company at risk? Cyber criminals are targeting your employees with COVID-19 inspired emails and attacking businesses like yours. Hi, Mark Sommerfeld from Rymark. Rymark has the tools and expertise to enable your employees to work securely from home. If you need help getting your staff to work remotely and securely, call 651-328-8900 or go to rymarkit.com. That's 651-328-8900 or rymarkit.com.
Seward Co-op is now offering convenient self-serve and prepackaged hot options and salad bars at both the Franklin and Friendship stores. Breakfast items available daily until 11 a.m. and brunch served all day every Sunday. Their weekly lunch and dinner menus highlight cuisines from around the world. They offer vegan, vegetarian, and gluten-free options daily. 95% of the ingredients used are organic from small-scale, local community food producers whenever possible. More at seward.coop.
Hello, it's Randy Rhodes, Team Randy. Glad to be a part of the lineup of Progressive Voices on AM 950. Tune in, join us weeknights at 10.
Hi, I'm Claire Ferreira, president and owner of Standard Heating and Air Conditioning. Ever since my grandfather founded Standard over 90 years ago, word-of-mouth advertising and referrals from our customers have always been important. That's why, after serving over 500,000 customers, we're proud to have a 4.9-star average rating out of 5 on our online reviews. Check them out for yourself and find out more at standardheating.com. That's standardheating.com.
Standard Heating and Air Conditioning has some spectacular savings that are so good they'll scare you. Right now with Standard, you can save $1,500 or more on a new furnace and AC combo. Plus, save an additional $100 on a new UV light or electric air cleaner with purchase. And don't forget to ask about 0% financing and installing a water heater with your purchase. But don't delay, as these spooky savings are only good during October. Visit standardheating.com. Standard Heating and Air Conditioning, providing the comfort you deserve since 1930. With your AM 950 weather, I'm Brett Johnson. Look for sunny skies today with a high near 46. Tonight, partly cloudy with a low around 32. And Thursday, sunny with a high around 55. Cafe Latte is a hot spot for American eats and house-made desserts in a cafeteria-style setup, plus a pizza and wine bar. Cafe Latte believes ingredients matter, so that's why they never use artificial flavors, colors, or preservatives. Dine in at the restaurant off Victoria and Grand in St. Paul or place a takeout order at cafelatte.com.
Pacific Media Radio Network. I'm Todd Mikkelson, sitting in on the Matt McNeil Show. Oh, that scared me. I thought it was you for a second.
I can't quite do the voice, no. Can't quite match the door.
This just in. The dumbest leader of the Republican Party in the House ever, Kevin McCarthy, downplays prospects for impeachment if GOP takes House. I take that as meaning two things. Possibly they're telling him or they're finding out that the GOP's going, everybody's talking too crazy. We're going way too far. And people are not going to vote for us if we keep saying that we're going to impeach the president if we get in. That's one thing. Or Kevin McCarthy, who's dumb enough to think that they are going to hold the House. And then even if they did hold the House, he's dumb enough to think Republicans are not going to vote him out of being the leadership. He actually thinks he's going to become the speaker. That's how dumb he is. I think he's thinking, oh, this is crazy. When I become speaker, I don't want to have to oversee impeaching the president. That's crazy. So I think that's an interesting thing. And, I was just going to start talking about economics a little bit. And you were talking about telepathy and meditation and stuff. Gary must have known this. Gary from Minneapolis wants to talk about GOP economics. Hey, Gary, did you feel me in your brain? Did you get like a telepathic?
That. I can't answer that though. But I'll start out. Can I start?
Yeah.
I'll start with the billionaires owning our healthcare, our media, our economy, our politics. And how's that working out for us? And then I'll list some others about the GOP Republicans. How's 40 years of Republican trickle-down economics working for you? How's Republican denial of the climate catastrophe we were warned about? How's that working for you? You got hit by the floods, the droughts, and the fires and all that storms yet?
Yeah.
How's college debt and corroded roads and bridges working for you. And that used to be funded by the wealthy taxes went to the states to fund college and bridges and all infrastructure. And how's free market, anti-government healthcare working for you?
Exactly. If the free market's going to fix it, why isn't it fixed? Right?
Yeah. And that's how I was paying taxes for the rich working for you with the drowning of the states and the cities. All the taxes were shifted local to the poor and the working class, and the middle class was left of it. That's
Right.
it, though, the things I listed.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks for your call, Gary. What I'm thinking is the reason that all those things keep getting voted back in is because people aren't paying enough attention, and there aren't enough Democrats voting and paying attention. That's changing. I mean, that's what we're talking about here is voter turnout. I'm hoping that all of these things are going to change because people are starting to pay attention more now than they ever have in my lifetime. I started voting about 40 years ago. So Gary was talking about basically the beginning of the Reagan era of economics, and which was 42 years ago is when that began, and trickle-down economics and everything like that started then. And now people are really paying attention. So when we talk about those things, people are listening. People like Gary and I remember when things changed into all of this, and I think we both remember when you could talk to, people from the Republican and Democratic Party could talk to each other, and people thought it was a privilege to vote, and people had respect for government. Gary and I are old enough to remember that kind of thing, and most people are not, because my life's getting really long now. So most people's lives have not gotten as long as mine. But when I said I wanted to start talking about economics, something that does make me nervous is, over the last year, I've been thinking about this and saying it, like when my wife and I talk about, so the Republicans are saying this now, they're doing this now, they're really going to overturn Roe v. Wade? They really did overturn. What is their plan? Because they know they're going to get pummeled for doing this stuff. And it makes me nervous, like, okay, they have some sort of really dastardly dark plan that's just going to, come in. It's going to, I don't know, they're building a Death Star, something that we just can't even imagine. And I think something that is going on that's sort of like that, I mean, it's not like a Death Star, but it's something that we didn't see coming, is large corporations. Now, yesterday, I kind of told the historic story about why the Republican Party is tied to large corporations. And how does that work with the argument that the Republican Party used to be the liberal party? Well, when the Republican Party was the liberal party, the large corporations didn't have enough resources to get up and running, so they needed government help. And the most liberal president that everyone thought we had up to that time was Abraham Lincoln, starting in 1861, and he started the interstate system, and he started really going more federal instead of just each state doing what each state wanted to do, because he was a progressive. He saw progress being made. He was like, okay, if you're riding on a road in a carriage in Virginia, and then all of a sudden you cross into North Carolina and the roads suck, you're going to break your carriage. So we need to have roads that go into, they need to be good throughout all the states. He was a visionary like that. And so he was working with the first large corporations, which were the railroads, and giving them land grants and subsidies so that they could build railroads across the country, because he saw the benefit of having railroads, especially during the Civil War, which gave the North a huge advantage because the South did not have enough resources. Even if they decided to be their own federal government, they didn't have enough resources to do that. The North did. So we expanded our rail system quite a bit during the Civil War, and immediately after the Civil War is when we started building the rail system going out west, trying to get all the way to the West Coast. And that was a huge deal. That was basically the equivalent of us going to the moon at that time. The fact that you could cross the whole country in like a few days instead of a few months was a huge, huge deal at that time. So anyway, the Republicans were tied with the you tied up with the large corporations, and then it changed where the large corporations got on their own 2 feet, and then the government would say, "Hey, you're being mean to your workers," and the government would say, "No, screw off, man. Don't leave us alone. You know, we're in charge of how we treat our workers." So then it became so the conservatives then were what the corporations wanted to be in charge, and the Republican Party was like, if we don't start turning more conservative, we're going to lose all the large corporations. That was one aspect of the very complicated transformation about the parties switching. Now what's going on is this inflation and gas pricing, and you hear Joe Biden starting to talk about it, especially today or tonight. It's a lot of it's on greed. So there's, the Republicans keep repeating it's the worst inflation in 40 years, but corporations have the largest profits in more than 40 years. And the oil companies have the largest profits probably ever. So why are they raising their prices on stuff? It's greed and it's politics. They're taking advantage of all of this, and they're realizing that, hey, this also makes the Democrats look bad. Let's do it right now this summer. Let's make inflation happen. I'm not saying that's completely what's going on, but it is a part of what is going on. This week, President Biden is trying to urge corporations and oil companies to stop it, to say, hey, let's cut a little bit into your record-breaking profits and try and bring prices down for working families in the United States. Can you help us out, guys? And they're like, well, you're god dang progressive. We want the conservatives to leave, so that we want them in charge, so that we get left alone, so we can, start treating our workers bad again. And you're going to make us pay them more and be nice to them. We don't want you in charge. So that is a part of what's going on. And that's the kind of scary thing. It goes beyond messaging, and it's kind of out of our control. And that's the kind of thing that I was talking about, being nervous about. Looks like have I made people angry, or are they on my side? Let's see.
Only one way to find out.
Yeah. So we had a guy who was not on my side calling on Monday. But that was kind of fun, actually. Let's go to Dave in Minneapolis first. Dave, you want to talk about corporate greed?
Yeah, as you know, we kind of live in a corporatocracy environment. Like the major news networks, Fox, CNBC, CBS, they omit a lot of news, which, it's like that's their form of censorship. They omit news.
Kind of like what they admit
that there's 8 billion people on the planet and 2 billion are starving to death.
Right, and they hide the fact that corporations are making record profits. They only talk about inflation. So that's basically the point you're making, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of them. And I don't know. Have you heard of this guy who wrote a book? He calls it Inverted Totalitarianism.
I don't think I have.
Okay. Do you remember a book that came out in like the 80s or late 70s, early 80s, Friendly Fascism?
That sounds a little familiar, but I didn't read it. I was just trying to chase girls and play guitar in the 80s.
Oh, okay. Same here. Anyway, basically, in both books, it's kind of saying our Congress is elected, based on, donations primarily from corporate, donors. And, there's exceptions like Bernie Sanders and others that, accept certain amounts. But for the most part, and then they're just trying to get reelected. And, they're basically whoever, going back to Howard Hughes, he used to give to both parties, back when Nixon and Humphrey were running, he gave money to both the parties because then he could influence depending,
either way, right? Yep.
Either way. And so, that these corporations are doing that. And we got this whole dark money thing. And
right. And yesterday I mentioned that, all of the issues that we talk about, whether it be gun safety or women's healthcare rights or whatever, they're symptoms of the disease, and the disease is money in politics. which is why the Republican Party bends over backwards for large corporations now, and because they get support from large corporations. And basically with the Citizens United ruling in 2010, it now just completely legalized bribery.
Yes, exactly. And that's what other countries, they go, what's going on in America? You've got legalized bribery. They don't allow what we got going on.
Exactly.
It's so bizarre.
It sounds like you and I. It sounds like you and I should go out for beers, Dave, and we're because we're in complete agreement. You know what? I gotta let you go. We gotta move on. I got another caller, and we got to take a break pretty soon. I'm gonna see if I can get to. I believe it said Mark. Who's the second caller? Brett. Mark. Yeah, Mark in Wisconsin wants to talk about railroad industry in the 1800s. Hey, Mark.
Yeah. I can't go. Chapter and verse on it, but you covered it pretty well. I mean, Lincoln was looking pretty progressively forward there because the South refused to industrialize.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've got a book on the Confederacy that talked about it's interesting, the Confederate Constitution, they didn't talk about forming a perfect union of the southern states. They repudiated. They didn't talk about a common defense or promoting the general welfare, both of which clauses are in our Constitution.
Right.
The U.S. Constitution. It's of interest that one of the Southern thinkers of the time considered the Confederate, the rebellion against the Union as a repudiation of the ideals of the independence, the Declaration of Independence, a repudiation of the Enlightenment, because he didn't like the idea of human equality or
right,
caring about your fellow man, because that's kind of what I see today in a lot of the Republican Party. They do not like the Enlightenment. They prefer Ayn Rand, and her philosophy is greed is good, and you don't owe anything to anybody else beside yourself.
Yeah, think they flatter themselves by thinking, well, the smartest people will have the most power, and I'm the smartest person. That's why I have the most power, and they don't care about humanity. They just care about power. So anyway, you know what, Mark, we got to take a hard break because we're on the network. But thank you so much for calling in. It sounds like I would have fun going out for beers with Mark in Wisconsin as well. You're listening to the Civic Media Radio Network, Matt McNeil Show. We'll be right back.
Hi, this is Chad from AM 950. Snap Construction is arguably the most well-reviewed roofing, siding, window, and insulation contractor in the metro. Ryan is so excited about working with AM 950 and our listeners that he wants to help us grow.
This is Ryan, owner of Snap Construction. I was friends with Chad long before I started marketing with him. I was a bit skeptical of radio advertising before Chad convinced us to run ads. The advertising's been so successful, we want to help the station grow. We've absolutely loved working with the listeners of AM 950, and we all know how extremely important this radio station is to the community. To help AM 950 grow, Snap Construction will be putting up proceeds to assist the station in marketing on social media. Snap Construction encourages you to follow, engage, share, and interact on the AM 950 social media platforms. Together, we can all work to ensure AM 950 continues to thrive and grow in our communities. We stand by our work with a lifetime craftsmanship guarantee. For a free estimate or more information on our financing, call 612-333-SNAP or check us out online.
Hi, this is Rose. Dad, please don't make me read this next line.
I guess whenever your friends are over, I'll pull out the banjo.
No. Fine. My dad is a mountain of integrity in these trying times. Matt McNeil.
Indeed.
Mountain of something. Fall school days means sports, music, school events, and activities. The Toyota Sienna is perfect. It fits all my friends, and with me now learning to drive, its safety features make my parents happy too.
For top-notch sales and service, go to Rudy Luther Toyota, the southeast corner of 394 and 169 in Golden Valley.
Located just north of 50th in France, the Great Wall Restaurant has provided a delicious taste of authentic Chinese cuisine since 1981, specializing in Szechuan and Peking dishes. One of the most extensive menus in the Twin Cities. Favorites include hot and sour soup, pan-fried dumplings, and mushu pork with homemade Chinese pancakes. Stop by their Edina location or call for takeout at 952-927-4439. See the full menu at greatwallrestaurant.us.
The Civic Media Radio Network is made up of Devil Radio, 92.7 FM in Madison, WTTN 1580 AM in Columbus, Wisconsin, WAUK 540 AM and 101 FM, The Shaw in Waukesha, Milwaukee, Bull Falls Radio, WXCO 98.9 FM and 1230 AM in Wausau, Wisconsin. Locally grown radio, WFHR 1320 AM and 97.5 FM, Wisconsin Rapids, Stevens Point. Lake Air, WXCE 1260 in Amory, Wisconsin. And Air Support Radio, 98.3 Oshkosh and 1100 AM, WISS in Berlin. Not Berlin, Berlin. And I'm sitting here in AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota in the Twin Cities. And I guess this is why I'm getting a bunch of phone calls. I'm finally convinced that it's more than just my mom and Lynette from Chaska listening. Notice that I do not include my wife or my daughter in that list because I know
me in there. I'm listening.
Oh, well, you have to, though. I mean, would you be? Did you listen yesterday? I don't think so.
I was in my office. No.
Let's go to Terry from Columbia Heights. He wants to talk about the call from the conservative from Wisconsin from Monday. Hey, Terry.
Hi, Todd. How you doing? You're doing a great job, by the way.
Oh, thank you very much.
But I did want to I want to clue you in about CJ. There's a popular program that's on directly after yours, and he calls into that all the time, and those guys literally laugh him off the radio. I mean, you've heard of the Republican crazy train. Well, he's one of the engineers. CJ is just, there's nothing you can say that will convince him that the Republicans are wrong.
I know,
but it's the Democrats' fault. And I mean, literally, the other guys, they laugh him off the radio. They'll come right in and they do sometimes what you did, cut him off the radio because he's just so absurd.
Yeah, I mean, and he's going to go all day, you know. Yeah,
he's a regular over there, and they've learned that when he comes on the radio, but he is
right.
He is way out there. Believe me.
You're talking about Crudy and Dominic on Devil's Advocates, I think, right?
I am.
Yeah,
I am.
Yeah, and they've been in Wisconsin for years, so he.
Yep, and he's been on. Every time I listen to the show, he's on there. When they go to answer calls, he's on there at least once, and he's spouting all this crap off.
Yeah,
and I mean, Crudy and Dom will sit there and they'll tell him where he's wrong and what the facts are. And he still doesn't believe it. So,
yeah, and I could tell that was going to happen. I got to say, though, I'm honored that he crossed over and called into this show when I was on, and I had a blast arguing with him.
It probably won't be your last time.
All right.
But you've been doing a great job, and all I got to say is to the listeners out there, go out and vote blue on November 8th.
Thank you.
We need everybody out there to vote blue, and we'll get these creeps out of office, and we'll get America back to where it should be.
That's right. Thank you very much, Terry. We need as many people repeating that as we possibly can get. That's Terry from Columbia Heights. Sounds like he and I could get along going out for beers as well. So, whereas CJ probably not so much. I don't know. Maybe we just take him out and get him super drunk and see what happens. I don't know. Suppose I shouldn't be saying. I don't know what I can and can't say on the radio. When I was on the radio back before the FCC rules were changed, I would have gotten in trouble for saying that. So am I in trouble for saying that, Brett? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't know if we could even say drunk, the word drunk on the air. But anyway. So what were we talking about even? Well, I was talking about that Joe Biden is kind of turning it on this week as far as pointing some of these things out about corporations and oil companies, basically being greedy and not doing anything to help the inflation and some other things about the economy. A lot of really interesting stuff, and you can get really deep into it. It's so complex, but the economy actually in the United States is doing extremely well. Sometimes inflation happens because people are spending, hand over fist. Can I say that on the radio? I don't even know. And people have money. They're going out. They're spending money. there's plenty of jobs. Employment is higher than it's been since we started keeping track of it, I think. Everything is really, really great in the economy. That's why, part of why prices went up. Part of it was supply chain issues because of the pandemic, and then people spending money. So the demand is so high. If I'm selling a sandwich for 75 cents and somebody says, "Hey, how much is your sandwich?" And I say 75 cents, and they're like, "Oh, really?" I wonder, oh man, should I have said more or less? And then they give me $1 and tell me to keep the change. Well, what would I do? I would raise the price of my sandwich maybe to 85 or 90 cents, because it's like, yeah, people are paying. People are willing to pay that. So I'm going to raise the price. That's part of how inflation works. And you also have to keep in mind inflation is worldwide. It's way worse in Europe and other countries than it is here. And I know everybody's, and it is really hard on the poorest of Americans. Any bit of inflation gets difficult when you're in that group of people, and having gas go up gets really difficult when you're in that group of people. But a lot of what caused this inflation is people were feeling kind of prosperous. It was, the pandemic's over with. Let's go out to eat, man. We haven't done that for 2 years, and let's go on a trip. We haven't done that for 2 years. So people are feeling like, hey, I'm going to spend money. And so that's part of it. It's very, that's why then they changed the rate. That's why the Fed has to raise the rate to borrow money, because you want to make it a little bit harder for people to borrow money. You kind of need to slow down their spending by raising the insurance rate, or not insurance. The what's the word I'm trying to think of?
Interest rate.
Interest rate. By raising the interest rate, you're trying to slow down spending a little bit, so you make it a little more difficult for people to borrow money, and so that's how things work. It's not talked about like that usually, because right now the Republicans just want to say that it's all Joe Biden's fault. Then, of course, if you say, well, okay, so he caused inflation in France and England and everywhere else as well. I mean, wow, he's a pretty powerful guy. And by the way, the supply chain issue began long before Biden became president. I know that from my own small business. I had vendors that were very reliable for the whole about 15 or so years that I was in business before the pandemic began. And all of a sudden, these companies were unable to deliver the parts that I had been relying on for 15 years. And they were getting delayed and delayed and delayed. One of the companies went completely out of business. That was a huge problem for me to solve. And that began when Trump was still president. And I got to say, we're running out of time, but the pandemic, how different would it have been if Hillary was president instead of Trump being president? Maybe we'll talk about that in the next hour. You've been listening to the Civic Media Radio Network. I'm Todd Mikkelson, sitting in for Matt McNeil. If you're in Wisconsin, you're going to start listening to Devil Radio. And if you're in Minnesota, you're going to have to keep listening to me for another hour here on AM 950. We'll be right back.
Eat Local Minnesota is a great way to find locally owned Minnesota restaurants and food purveyors. You'll find high-quality food and unique eating experiences with dishes from around the world. Just visit eatlocalminnesota.com for your next meal. Cafe Latte combines a cafe dining experience with gourmet quality food. Plus, you can still do online ordering and takeout along with gift cards. Just go to cafelatte.com and choose from their ever-changing selection of award-winning salads, sandwiches, and soups. Cafe Latte is located off Victoria and Grand and online at cafelatte.com. Come visit the award-winning Hazel's Northeast in Minneapolis for breakfast, lunch, dinner, or weekend brunch. For breakfast, try the slow-cooked brisket hash, hippie cakes, and meat waffle. While for lunch, enjoy favorites like the buttermilk fried chicken sandwich or veggie burger. Hazel's is open Tuesdays through Saturdays, 8 to 8, with a Sunday brunch from 8 to 2. Located off 29th and Johnson in Northeast Minneapolis. More at hazelsne2go.com.
It's Brad Friedman, host of the Bradcast, weeknights at 7 on AM 950. KTNF, St. Louis Park, Minneapolis, St. Paul, the progressive voice of Minnesota.
AP News. I'm Ed Donahue. President Biden is making another push to lower gas prices as the pivotal midterm elections approach. The AP's Sagar Meghani is at the White House.
Nearly a year's worth of extraordinary efforts have yet to make a big dent at the pumps. And while prices are falling, the president says they're not falling fast enough, and families are still hurting.
You've heard me say it before, but I get it.
And he wants frustrated voters to get that he's still trying. The latest move is releasing another 15 million barrels of oil from the nation's strategic reserve, with perhaps more to come in the winter. The president's political fortunes do appear tied to gas prices. Still, he's bristling at critics who suggest this step is politically motivated.
Where have they been the last 4 months?
Saying he authorized SPR drawdowns months ago. Sagar Meghani, Washington.
Speaking to the Conservative Heritage Foundation, former Vice President Mike Pence talked about the growing gulf between traditional conservatives and the new generation of populist candidates, inspired in part by former President Donald Trump.
We will stand for the Constitution. We will uphold its principles, even when it would be politically expedient to do otherwise. Because if conservatives don't defend the Constitution, we won't just lose elections. We'll lose our country.
Pence also admonished Putin apologists, those unwilling to stand up to the Russian leader over his assault on Ukraine. A former UCLA student, Christian Secor, who stormed the Capitol on January 6th of last year while waving a flag promoting a far-right extremist movement, was sentenced to 3 years in prison. UCLA suspended Secor after the riot. Officials say a Customs and Border Protection firearms instructor was shot and killed during a training class at a South Florida gun range. The shooting is under investigation. The Dow finished down about 100 points. This is AP News.
We tried Dynovite for gut health and immune support, and after a couple of weeks, our little Gizmo was acting like a puppy again. His coat was shinier, he had a lot less scratching and shedding, and he seemed like his happy old self.
My dog smelled and scratched constantly. We bathed and sprayed her, took her to the vet, but no results. Now, a little Dynovite in her food helps Bella keep her beautiful coat with no scratching or smell.
Get 10% off your next order of Dynovite nutritional supplements for dogs at Dynovite.com. Happier, healthier with every bite. Over 1 million pets helped with Dynovite.
Here's a message just for the attorneys out there. So you passed the bar, joined a firm, or even built your own. Now are you finding out that you're doing more administration than actual law practice? Lexicon can help. Lexicon is a legal technology provider with over a decade of experience streamlining administrative tasks like timekeeping, billing, and more, so you can focus on maximizing billable hours and increasing client satisfaction. Call 855-4-LEXICON or visit lexiconservices.com/go to learn more.
Native Roots Radio presents Rock the Vote Native Style, featuring local, regional, and national Native and ally candidates, politicians, and political activists every week until midterm elections. Join us on Tuesdays at 6 p.m. for Native Roots Radio presents Rock the Vote Native Style, educating and empower Native people and BIPOC allies to take to the polls and make their voices heard. Rock the Vote Native Style, Tuesdays at 6 p.m. Central on Native Roots Radio.
Habitation presents a radio drama. To buy or not to buy, that is the question. Whether 'tis nobler to compromise and live with a sectional that doth not fit my space, or to take up arms against a sea of mediocrity, and by opposing it, to rest, to be comfortable, to enjoy the space that is my home. Hi, this is Gregory Rich, owner of Habitation Design and host of Drink in the Style. I'd like to personally invite you to our new showroom located in the District at Edina, 7777 Washington Avenue South. Habitation, put some drama into your interior design.
Next time on Philosophy Talk, liberty and justice for who?
According to classic British liberalism, people have the right to self-govern because we're born free, equal, and capable of rationality.
But that same liberalism was used to justify empire.
So how could a British pro-freedom philosophy end up taking freedom away from so many people, Josh?
What are you looking at me for?
Liberty and justice for who? Next time on Philosophy Talk.
Philosophy Talk, every Sunday at 8 a.m. on AM 950.
When you see bald eagles flying high in the sky, it captures the imagination. When you visit the National Eagle Center in Wabasha, Minnesota, your imagination soars. Meet live eagles up close, explore interactive exhibits, and attend exciting programs. Go behind the scenes, join an eagle field trip, or cruise on the Mississippi River, the heart of bald eagle territory. It's the perfect destination for families and learners of all ages. Open daily 10 to 5. Head to where the eagles are. Plan your visit online at thenationaleaglecenter.org.
With your AM 950 weather, I'm Brett Johnson. Look for sunny skies today with a high near 46. Tonight, partly cloudy with a low around 32. And Thursday, sunny with a high around 55. Cafe Latte is a hot spot for American eats and house-made desserts in a cafeteria-style setup plus a pizza and wine bar. Cafe Latte believes ingredients matter, so that's why they never use artificial flavors, colors, or preservatives. Dine in at the restaurant off Victoria and Grand in St. Paul or place a takeout order at cafelatte.com.
Portions of the following program may be pre-recorded.
AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. It's the Matt McNeil Show. And I am not Matt McNeil. I'm Todd Mikkelson, sitting in for Matt, who's on vacation this week. We got Brett in on the board today. And we were talking about how different things may have been had Trump not become president. I think this is kind of a fun thing to speculate on. And if you're at a really boring party with people who are obsessed and mentally deranged like me, this is kind of a fun party game. Like, for instance, one thing, if JFK had not been assassinated, he was beginning to think that, there was a big movement in the 1960s where why are we spending all this money on trying to go to the moon when we have people starving in our own country? He was really starting to listen to that side of things more and more. And some speculate that if he remained president, he would have pulled back on the moon mission. We might not have gone to the moon in the 1960s. Is that interesting to anyone other than me? Is that interesting to you, Brett?
Yeah, I didn't know he was that seriously considering that. I knew that was certainly something that was a sentiment that was out there among a lot of activists, but I didn't know that it made its way all the way to politicians in Washington who were considering that.
Yeah, he was getting a little bit more. He was becoming more sensitive to civil rights, and he was really listening to people. He was listening to people who were coming and talking to him about problems that he was not previously privy to, and it was changing him. Even his marriage was getting better right before he died, and he was starting to tone it down a little bit. He was starting to be a little bit less of a kind of a frat boy. He didn't seem like a frat boy, but he was pretty promiscuous and reckless, and he was becoming less so. He was getting a little bit more down to earth. So there are a lot of people who think that he might have pulled back on it. We still might have done some stuff, but maybe not gone all the way to the moon. Maybe he would have talked about reconsidering things like that. Well, what if Hillary Clinton was president when the coronavirus very first began in China? What happened when Trump was there? Trump thinks, all these guys like me. Xi in China, he loved me. He loved me. He didn't. I tried to get him to write me a love letter, but he didn't go that far as some of my other friends. But he loved me. When in reality, all these guys just saw him as a pushover. They just saw him as somebody they could take advantage of. They could do anything they wanted to because he didn't have any idea what was going on at any given moment, and he was just a narcissist. He wasn't. So China basically kicked out all the United States guys that were there, that basically their job was to do inspections and keep an eye on things. The SARS, if you remember, in something like 2002 or something, 2001 or 2, was in China. It broke out in China, and it pretty much remained in China. It certainly didn't make its way to the United States. Everyone was really scared when it first came out because they said this could turn into a worldwide pandemic. But it didn't, because there were people there who were changing it. They were trying to take care of it. We've heard stories. I read some stories on this radio station earlier this last spring about that there are stories coming out about how the Chinese really did cover it up. They lied about it. And they could, because there was nobody there monitoring them, because they kicked all the United States monitors out because they knew Trump didn't even know what that meant. Hillary Clinton would not have let that happen. They probably wouldn't have even tried doing it. They saw the opportunity because Trump's such an idiot. So what if the coronavirus just turned into a SARS kind of situation where, yeah, it sucks in China, but it gets contained and it does not become a worldwide pandemic. And then there is not supply chain issues and there's not a complete shutdown that needs to happen. And would the economy have stumbled? And by the way, the economy is coming back really fast at record amounts and speeds. But part of the reason it's doing that is because it got so low during the pandemic. Unemployment, what did it go up to, like 20% at one point? And I mean, that's insane. And maybe none of that would have happened if Hillary Clinton had been president. And I also think we would still be in the dull headache of everybody complaining about Hillary Clinton. We'd still be, the Republicans would still be yelling about Benghazi and stuff like that, because nobody would have known that how bad a worldwide pandemic would have been, because it wouldn't have happened. So they would still be complaining about all the crap that they were complaining about before Trump. And maybe then Democrats would be struggling constantly to get voter turnout, and because there's not enough of an alarm going on. It would just be a dull headache of actual economic downturn. And so again, it's kind of like I keep talking about, it's you got to die before you go to heaven. So in some ways, is it better that Trump became president and completely decimated the whole world so that we've hit absolute rock bottom and the only way to go from here is up? Is that a good thing? I don't know. People are more engaged than ever right now. Again, now it's called the Inflation Reduction Act. It was called Build Back Better. I like the Build Back Better name a lot better because that's what we're doing. We have a chance to, it's so difficult to completely change things when everything's so intermeshed with each other. If you mentioned the like I mentioned again yesterday, the military industrial complex, it's really hard to change that because so much of our economy, so many businesses in the United States rely on that. So to make that go away, a lot of businesses would go out of business. So it's really, really difficult to do. Well, the pandemic kind of was that. We could use the opportunity to build back better, make things better. Let's really work on a electric grid that relies on reliable energy, renewable energy, instead of going back to how we were before the pandemic. We have an opportunity. We have to build back. So let's do it better. Let's make things better. We're already building the economy back better. We've got unprecedented climate change legislation passed. We've got a little bit of a start on gun safety that has been completely stuck in the muck for more than 30 years. So we have another caller, Steve from South Minneapolis, how hospitals may have handled SARS years ago. This sounds interesting. Hi, Steve.
Well, hi. I was working in a hospital back when the SARS problem was happening, and we were preparing for an epidemic. The hospital was preparing. I imagine hospitals all over the country were doing it. We were being fitted for masks that we were getting special fittings for masks that they were developing to deal with the SARS, which thankfully never happened. But right. We would have been very well prepared, much better prepared than we were for the COVID-19. And I'm sure if Hillary had won, it would have been the same thing that Obama did. And We had been so much better off, but didn't Obama during the Obama administration set up a special office?
You're talking about
to
Ebola.
Deal with this stuff?
You're talking about Ebola, maybe in 2011.
Well, it was SARS.
Okay.
It was SARS. And we were being fitted for masks for it.
Right.
In the hospital.
Were you still working in the hospital when COVID-19 began?
I'm retired now. No, I was retired then.
Yeah. Wow, this is a really interesting insight. I'm glad you called.
Okay, yeah, and then didn't the Obama administration also set up a special office to deal with potential pandemics, and it was dismantled immediately by Trump's administration?
That is true. You're reminding me. I forgot about that. You're completely correct. Yeah, and Obama did it because Ebola was a big scare of Ebola in 2011 or 12 that Obama had to deal with, and it was contained pretty well. I think we ended up having 2 people die of it in the United States, and then it went away. And a lot of it, because of all the preparation. And then Obama basically thought, look, we got to write some instructions for this in case this happens again. And they put together a book. Do you like my Obama imitation, Steve? Was that good?
It's okay.
Yeah, I haven't been working on it, but yeah, he came up with the whole plan, and Trump was like, if Obama did it, I don't want it here. Throw it out. Let me flush it down the toilet. Will it fit? So, yep. And it decimated the whole world. So that's a great perspective, Steve. That's a very valuable bunch of information that you called in. Thank you so much for calling. I was going to also read a story about that just happened on Monday. There was a report that came out. You know what? We should maybe take a break. How about this would be a good place to take a break, and when we come back, I'll tell you about this report. You're listening to AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. Todd Mikkelson sitting in for the Matt McNeil Show. We'll be right back.
I'm John Peterson of Ferndale Market, and I'm the 3rd generation to grow turkeys on our family farm in Cannon Falls. We've grown them the same way since 1939, free range and without antibiotics. We're proud of the way our turkey tastes naturally, so we never add fillers or basting solutions, just 100% pure turkey. And we're proud to remain an independent family farm. Looking for an extra special addition to this year's Thanksgiving feast? Our fresh, never frozen turkeys remove the hassle of thawing and can be picked up just days before your celebration. Available at natural food stores across the region. Reserve your fresh, free-range Thanksgiving turkey for pickup at our store right on our farm in scenic Cannon Falls or at one of our retail partners. For more information on finding our Ferndale Market Thanksgiving turkey near you, visit us at ferndalemarket.com. That's ferndalemarket.com. Thank you for your support of local foods and farmers. We'll hope to see you at Ferndale Market soon. ferndalemarket.com.
Since 1998, the Data Bank GBC has been providing progressive Minnesota nonprofits with innovative, affordable database and communication solutions. We pioneered web-based fundraising software, and today we offer hybrid custom solutions for a wide range of organizational needs, from program management to voter engagement. In addition to outstanding software, the Data Bank provides a wide range of data enhancement services, including personal demographics, voter registration, voting history, email and phone appends, and much more. To help your nonprofit increase stakeholder engagement, the Data Bank is offering 20% off all data enhancement services until the end of September. Now is the time to get ready for your fall fundraising and voter activation campaigns. Contact us today at info@thedatabank.com to find out how the Data Bank can help your nonprofit build capacity and create more impact. That's info@thedatabank.com.
End-of-life decisions are not easy to make. Hi, I'm Mary T. of Mary T. Hospice Care. It's important to make sure that this difficult time is meaningful and comforting to you and your loved ones. Our hospice team provides an individualized program of physical, emotional, spiritual, and practical care so your loved one is comfortable and not in pain. At Mary T. Hospice, we understand that choosing the right hospice care provider can be overwhelming, but we're here to assist you. Learn more today at marytinc.com.
Now that autumn is here, get your vehicle service done at Rudy Luther Toyota. Regardless of where you purchased your vehicle, Rudy Luther Toyota is your #1 destination for auto service and repair. For routine maintenance or a larger repair, easily schedule your appointment on their website, rudyluthertoyota.com. That's rudyluthertoyota.com. They fit with your schedule, they're fast and courteous, and they do the job right. I trust them. With the cooler weather, keep your vehicle running at its best with service from Rudy Luther Toyota, 5 miles west of downtown Minneapolis on 394.
AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. Todd Mikkelson sitting in for the Matt McNeil show. And I was going to tell this story about a report that came out. It was released on Monday by the Select Committee on the Coronavirus Crisis. This would have been huge news in the pre-Trump days. This would have, this is the equivalent of the 9/11 Commission, basically. And so the report came out on Monday, and nobody's really talking about it. In this report, former CDC Director Robert Redfield, former top deputy Ann, and a name I can't pronounce, so I'm going to call her Ann. So CDC Director Robert Redfield, former top deputy Ann, and others described how the Trump White House and its allies repeatedly bullied staff, tried to rewrite their publications, and threatened their jobs in an attempt to align the CDC with the more optimistic view of the pandemic espoused by Donald Trump. It's kind of like we knew it, but we're still surprised to find it out in an official report. And this would have been huge news any other time in the existence of, in the space and time continuum. Several public health officials detailed a months-long campaign against Ann, sparked by Trump appointees' belief that her grim assessments of the pandemic reflected poorly on the president, leading Ann, a 32-year CDC veteran, to openly wonder if she would be fired in the summer of 2020. The panel's latest report also offers new insight into key flashpoints, such as a CDC-backed plan to require masks on public and commercial transportation in the summer of 2020, with Martin Cetron, director of the agency's Division of Global Migration and Quarantine, citing evidence that the requirement would reduce COVID risks to travelers. A big duh. The plan was backed by the travel industry and could have made a significant contribution by curbing infections and deaths ahead of a fall and winter virus surge that year, Cetron added, but Trump officials blocked the measure. Redfield and other officials told the panel that they believed they would be fired if they angered the White House, hindering the CDC's ability to fight the virus. He says, if we constantly are finger-pointing and blaming somebody else for things, we lose the fact that the real enemy here was the virus. So this is just insane. It's huge. The order was... Stephen Miller was among the officials who discussed the immigration restrictions and went against them. Don't let him do anything that's going to make me look bad. Just childish. This guy was a petulant little 8-year-old boy on the playground who needed to have his ass kicked and never has had. And then there's a photo here that just reminds me of really how orange he was. Normal Caucasian skin color around his eyes, like he's got a little mask on, and then the rest of his face, except for missing little blotches where his hairline is, bright orange. And they call him the alpha male. This is the tough guy the Republicans worship now, like he's Jesus Christ. He wears orange makeup. He's I gotta go home. I can't finish the show.
I don't blame you. I had not heard about this report either. This is news to me, and I'm glad you're bringing this up. This is just some disturbing information you're putting out here.
And it's huge news. It's huge news. Congressional reports used to be huge news. We had to sit through Benghazi for years. And this is actual real news. Why isn't it? I'm reading from the Washington Post. It is news, but it's not really being covered. Drive me crazy. But that's what the Republican Party has begun. Somebody tweeted, some super right-wing person tweeted the other day that this party is no longer the party of Kinzinger and Liz Cheney and the people that they call rhinos now. It's no longer that party. It's the party of Lauren Boebert and Marjorie Taylor Greene, and it's like, wow, yeah, this is the first time I've ever agreed with you. That's completely true. And we just heard, I thought this was really interesting news too, and I don't have any writing in front of me about it or an actual report about it, but we just heard it at the top of the hour on the news. Former Vice President Pence kind of sounding like he's trying to point out that we got to stop listening to Trump and all of his endorsed freakazoids, or we're going to lose our country. Sounds like he's trying to make a delineation, trying to point out the differences between the crazy, Marjorie Taylor Greene crowd and who Marjorie Taylor Greene would call a rhino. He's going against Trump, finally, in a public statement. And he's basically saying, if we support Marjorie Taylor Greene and Matt Gaetz and Lauren Boebert and Carrie Lake and J.D. Vance and Herschel Walker, we're going to lose. He said, we're not only going to lose elections, but we're going to lose our country. So that also tells me, I really think the Republicans are starting to see in some sort of internal polling that there's a blue tsunami beginning across the ocean. It's due to hit here on November 8th. He said we're not only going to lose elections, we'll lose our country. So he's admitting that that group of people basically want to turn us into a fascist autocracy. But he's also saying that if we keep supporting these people, if we stick with these people, we're going to lose elections. What does he know that we're not hearing? I found that really, really interesting, and I want to look into. I want to look into his. I want to go deeper into that because I found that highly interesting. Of course, I'm a mentally deranged, obsessive politico. So
it only took him 6.5 years to reach that conclusion.
Yeah, right.
Better late than never, maybe.
Yeah. We really need him on our side. No, I'm just kidding. It also really tells me that he has absolutely, completely given up on running for president, which that would just be embarrassing to watch him try and do that.
Oh, could you imagine him on the same debate stage as Trump? He would just get undressed on the stage by Trump with insults. And
I got to say, brutal. I can't imagine it. It would just be, I mean, he's embarrassing to watch anyway.
Yeah.
And to watch him. That reminds me too, you and I were talking about Liz Cheney and what she's got up her sleeve. And I don't think we came up with this particular point. I think I thought of this later. This is you and I talking on the radio months ago now, another time when I was sitting in for Matt. We were trying to speculate as to, it was right when Liz Cheney lost her primary. And, what's she going to do? She's not even going to be in Congress now. Is she going to run for president? She knows she can't get the nomination from the Republican Party because the Republican Party's too crazy. And I can't remember if you and I brought this up or not, but I still think it's interesting. What if she decided the Republican Party needs to be completely dismantled? I'm going to run as an independent and try and take votes from the Republican Party and just take over the Republican Party with a different name that she's basically the leader of. Do you think that's a possibility? I don't know.
Yeah, that seems kind of far-fetched, but you never know. I mean,
It seemed far-fetched that Trump would become president. So,
I hope that too. Far-fetched that you could actually start a third party too. I'd be a little skeptical of that. I don't know. I just think with the Republicans, the second he becomes electorally not beneficial, I think you'll see more of them start jumping ship.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm thinking, is that she would try and get ahead of where all of those people would go after they jump ship. Would she make it so that they actually have to leave what is called the Republican Party, kind of like what happened with the Whigs back in the 1850s? Does it have to go away and start over again? Because with the Whigs, a lot of the Whigs left the party and became Republicans, and is basically a very similar party with a different name. I'm just wondering if there's a possibility that she has some sort of scheme where, if I run as president, I can get Mitt Romney and everybody to support me instead of DeSantis or whoever the current Republicans are going to try and put up. By the way, I think there's a chance DeSantis is not going to survive his gubernatorial election as well. But interesting, speculative type of thing. When we come back, I want to get into some Minnesota stuff. I haven't touched on that, and there's a lot going on. And everybody's doing debates and all this stuff. I'd like to talk about that for the rest of the show, I think. And when we come back, we're going to come back soon. You're listening to AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. Todd Mikkelson sitting in on the Matt McNeil Show. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Rachel Shamblot. My dad is Dr. Scott Shamblot from Shamblot Family Dentistry. A lot of people are afraid of the dentist, but you don't have to be. My dad makes going to the dentist comfortable and even fun. He won't be mad if you haven't seen a dentist in a long time. He just wants to take care of you and your teeth. If you don't see my dad, please see another dentist. Take care of your teeth because they're the only ones you get.
Shamblot Family Dentistry in Hopkins and St. Paul. Find them online at shamblotfamilydentistry.com or call 1-800-FIX-MY-TEETH.
Hi, this is Paul Metza inviting you to listen to the Wall of Power Radio Hour. We have been on the air on AM 950 for over 5 years, over 200 original shows in the can, including musicians, artists, promoters, authors, comedians, and more. We're on the air Saturdays at 6 p.m. If you'd like to advertise, get a hold of us at am950radio.com. And stay tuned this weekend, Wall of Power Radio Hour.
If you're looking to save money on your home or building improvement project, check out Better Futures Minnesota's reuse retail warehouse in South Minneapolis. We carry salvage building materials such as cabinetry, flooring, plumbing fixtures, appliances, lighting, and more, saving you money and saving the planet by keeping these items out of the landfill, by giving them another life. Selections change daily, and we also take donations. Go to betterfuturesminnesota.com and look under Reuse Warehouse to learn more. Let us know AM 950 sent you.
Electricity costs have hit historic highs, and they're likely to continue rising with no end in sight. If you own a business, those are costs that are eating away at your bottom line. But switching to All Energy Solar can help you see green instead of red. A system from All Energy Solar offers a bankable investment with energy costs that won't rise along with fossil fuels. So stop renting your energy from the utility company because the rent keeps going up. Solar tax incentives are strong, returning up to 60% of your investment. But those credits will decrease in 2023. And with more businesses switching to solar, capacity is limited. That's why reserving your spot on the grid now has never been more critical. All Energy Solar has the experience of installing over 6,000 systems for all sorts of properties in the Midwest and beyond. Get a free no-obligation assessment from All Energy Solar's commercial solar specialists today by calling 800-620-3370 or visiting allenergysolar.com.
We use technology every day to help manage our lives. Why not use it to help manage your medications? St. Paul Corner Drug offers several free tools to keep you on track while taking your medications. Use our mobile app to quickly order a refill, or the Meds on Q application, which turns your smartphone or tablet into your very own personal medication attendant. Email and text messaging options let you know when your medication is ready for pickup, making efficient use of your time. St. Paul Corner Drug, pharmacy the way it should be.
With your AM 950 weather, I'm Brett Johnson. Look for sunny skies today with a high near 46. Tonight, partly cloudy with a low around 32. And Thursday, sunny with a high around 55. Cafe Latte is a hot spot for American eats and house-made desserts in a cafeteria-style setup, plus a pizza and wine bar. Cafe Latte believes ingredients matter, so that's why they never use artificial flavors, colors, or preservatives. Dine in at the restaurant off Victoria and Grand in St. Paul, or place a takeout order at cafelatte.com.
I'm alright. Nobody but about me.
AM 950.
Why you got to give me a fight?
Progressive Voice of Minnesota. We're back. It's going to be nice this weekend. It's going to get up to like mid-70s on Saturday and Sunday.
Oh, it's going to be great. I'm getting out there in that. Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. Last ride on the motorcycle and stuff. So we're going to go into Minnesota stuff. In very local politics, you know, I work with candidates out in my district, including Lauren Bresnahan, who's running for the House seat in 45A. She is going to become my House representative in this coming January. And since she's, you know, this is her first time running, they're trying to put hit pieces out. First of all, it's a really good sign because this doesn't happen out in our district. The Republican Party of Minnesota paid for this. They're kind of expensive. You know, they're like, I don't know, 11 by 5, I don't know, pretty big, color print on both sides, and then you got to send it out in the mail. It's expensive stuff to do, and the Republican Party is short on funds, so the fact that they're targeting Lauren Bresnahan is great news, and then the way they do it makes it even better. I swear to God, it's going to help her more than hurt her. First of all, when you're running campaigns like this, it's easy to kind of control things. You know, she hasn't been on TV a lot. There's not, you know, you see these photos that they're using, the walls failed. You know, they try and find the worst looking photo. They try the worst looking look on his face or something like that because they can find a bad photo of him, you know? And when you're a politician, you don't really have a publicist. Like Steven Tyler used to get really mad at his publicist if a picture got printed in a magazine that like showed his part of his silver fillings. He really was hung up on having his silver fillings shown in a photograph in like rock magazines in the 70s. Don't ask me why I know that as well.
Side note, maybe a discussion for another day, but politicians maybe should have publicists to help with that stuff.
I mean, I think really big ones do, but
Yeah.
you know, it's not your focus. You know, your Steven Tyler's focus is, you know, how you sound and how you look. When you're a politician, you got other things on your mind. But, you know, so for Lauren's site, and I did this when I ran, and we did this with the Kelly Morrison campaign back when I was part of that, and other campaigns, you put up photos that you want to get used if anybody prints a photo of you. You know, and newspapers will grab photos of you and stuff, and they'll publicize them, and you don't even know they're doing it. So what you do is you have a page on your website, because that's the first place they're going to go look. You have a page on your website that says media, and then you go to that page and you have really nice photos that are really high quality, lots of pixels and stuff, so that the photo looks good when it's printed in the newspaper. And quite often then your opponent doesn't know that, so their photo does not look good and your photo looks good. So these hit pieces on Lauren Bresnahan, you know, they have these pictures where she just looks great. She looks very welcoming, has a nice smile. She looks like she's knowledgeable. She, you know, because it's the best photos. These are special photos we took of her, and we wanted to look the best. But then they make them like black and white, or they kind of put blotches on them or something like that. And it's hilarious because it's a great photo of her, and they're trying to make her look evil, but they just can't. And other news is that the messaging that the Republicans are using is just very predictable. You know, what were the results of Lauren Bresnahan's party bosses voting to defund the police? When everybody knows that there were no votes to defund the police. There was a little bit of talk about it in the Minneapolis City Council. all other Democrats are saying, I never wanted to defund the police. And the fact that because she's not currently in the House, she hasn't been able to vote on anything yet. They say that she has party bosses. So it's like, makes it sound like it's the mob. Lauren Bresnahan is endorsed by the politicians who voted to defund the police. More violent crime, more criminals on the street, fewer police. That's the record Lauren Bresnahan will support. You know, things like that. Siding with extremists and criminals. She voted, you know, her party bosses voted against this and voted for that. And it's just really pathetic. And they have pictures of guys in, you know, just, they look like death. You know, it's like they're wearing a hoodie. So they might just be a black guy, a criminal, or they might be the Grim Reaper, you know, and they have a picture of just a very nice looking young upper teenage girl, like in a dark room looking like she's a little scared. And then off in the corner, there's a guy in a hoodie. She never thought she'd feel unsafe in her own neighborhood. Then Lauren Bresnahan's party bosses voted to defund the police. It's a bunch of crap.
Wait, that's actually real? You're not making that up? Wow.
Yeah, I'm showing it.
Of course, as you said, they're showing, the teenage girl on there. Oh, look at how scared she is because these people from Minneapolis are coming to get her. Yeah, it's just, it's like a parody almost.
It is. That's what I'm saying. It'll help her more than hurt her, because even Republicans will look at this and go, oh, this is just a bunch of crap. What are you doing? And they sent 2 to our house in one day. Very expensive. This also means that they're flying blind. They don't know that they're spending a lot of money sending to a very strong Democrat who ran as a Democrat for the House in the past. You know, they think they're going to sway me. No, they know they're not going to sway me, but they don't know to not send it to my house. Another way that you do these mailers is you save money by not sending it to people that you know would just be superfluous to send it to. So they're not saving money. Because they don't have enough money to get good information, they're wasting money by, you know, sending it to everybody. And 2 in one day, and it's redundant. Some of the writing is exactly the same on both of the mailers. This one has a sweet old woman looking very concerned off to the right, you know, and then a picture of Lauren where Lauren looks very sweet and nice and welcoming.
Oh, they didn't like try to pick a bad photo of her in that one. Maybe they didn't do such a good job on that. Yeah.
And then on this one, they have nice photos of her, but they turned them black and white to try and make her look scary.
Oh, yeah, that's the other trick too, right?
So yeah, we've also gotten some hit pieces on Kelly Morrison, and they're just the same kind of crap. But like I said, the Lauren Bresnahan campaign is kind of encouraged because it's like, wow, they must be scared of me. And then the other thing that's going on is the same old thing. I saw this start to happen, and I thought it was interesting because when I first became a candidate, you know, you go through this sort of candidate training because you have people who are just scared to death to run, but they would maybe be a great legislator and maybe a great candidate. But so you got to kind of say, well, here's what you need to do. You need to door knock. You need to do this. You need to make phone calls. You need to, you know, try and put your name out there. You need to come up with a logo so people get used to you and know what they're voting for, and, you know, have some congruency in the way you're presenting yourself and your logo and all that kind of stuff. But then part of it is when you're talking about issues, like you might be on a television segment or on a telephone call to a reporter or something like that. It's good to try and think of a real story, you know, like, I just spoke to this woman who lives in Wayzata, and she's nervous because her husband doesn't know if he's going to be able to keep his job, and she can't find childcare. She might have to get a job at, you know, so and if she lets you use her name, that's even better because it personalizes the story. Instead of just saying, you know, people can't get childcare, you tell a story about somebody in your district that you actually spoke to. But then, of course, a lot of people just started lying about it. They would just say, you know, and this is what you can tell when Republicans do this all the time and Trump does it all the time. You know, a lot of people are saying, and I remember watching something on PBS, the political almanac, and there was a Republican and a Democrat. I actually personally knew the Republican. Well, I knew him. I personally knew them both. So I just thought this was really interesting because the Republican that I personally knew, I thought it was out of character for that person, and I could tell that it was a lie. But basically, both of them were saying, I speak to people in my district who are saying this. And then the Republican will say, I speak to people in my district that are saying this. And it's the exactly opposite. So, it's just a bunch of crap. So now they've sort of, cheapened that whole way of doing things. Now people just are kind of like, well, so you're saying that your district only has Republicans and then your district only has Democrats? Is that how that works? Are there places that really are like that? No. People are mixed everywhere. Republicans talk to people who disagree with them, but of course they never tell that story. So it cheapens that whole way of like, I spoke to somebody in my district who, thinks this. It's less believable now because it's been so abused. And now, this messaging is being abused. And now what's going on with all these debates and stuff, I listened to a little bit of the debate from 2 nights ago on WCCO for the AG race between Jim Schultz and Keith Ellison. And Jim Schultz just keeps saying the same things. There was 2 debates close to each other, and he's basically got the same script that he was using for both debates. And he doesn't listen to the question. He makes no attempt to actually answer what he's asked. He just starts reading from his script again. And it's mostly lies. During the first debate, he said these lies that were just so stupid that Keith Ellison was like, what are you talking about? And then Jim Schultz would say, I'm really surprised to hear that you don't know what I'm talking about. As the Attorney General, you should know what that means. And he's like, what? No, I don't know what it means. And it's because Jim Schultz is bringing up stuff that has nothing to do with anything pertinent to any of this. So Keith Ellison's going, well, what are you talking about right now? And Jim Schultz tries to make Keith Ellison look like he doesn't know anything about anything, because it's like, no, what I don't know about is your craziness. You're confusing me because you're so crazy. What you're saying doesn't make any sense right now. So yeah, I'm a little confused. So it's silly at this point what the Republicans are doing. And then I see, and part of the reason I listened to it was, well, because I'm going to be on the radio and I thought I should know a little bit about what I'm talking about, but also because I see all these people on Twitter, the same old suspects, the usual suspects. They're saying, oh, Jim Schultz wiped the floor with Keith Ellison. And then you see the exact same guy say the exact same thing. Oh, Scott Jensen wiped the floor with Tim Walz. And it's like, did he? Because they know so many people did not listen to the debate and will not listen to the debate. So they're just saying, first of all, winning a debate doesn't mean that you're ahead, doesn't mean that you're going to win the election. Secondly, these debates aren't real debates. There hasn't been a real debate in the United States politics for decades and decades and decades. They even call them debate forums usually, because it's just kind of, it's not a real debate where you're actually going back and forth and making points to prove your point, and then the other person making a point to prove their point. That doesn't happen in debates. It's just, but sometimes you really do get some valuable points in. And the fact that people are saying Scott Jensen won this debate, I think can be proven in one single clip that we're going to play when we come back. We need to take one more break. I'm Todd Mikkelson, sitting in for the Matt McNeil Show. You're listening to AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota.
The days are growing shorter and temperatures are getting colder. You know what that means. It's time to plan your unforgettable Eagle viewing trip with the National Eagle Center. Spend a Saturday afternoon with the experts viewing bald and golden eagles in the heart of Eagle territory. Travel by coach bus to multiple Eagle hotspots and receive engaging informational programming along the way. Trips last 4 hours and minimal walking is required. Learn more and register online today at nationaleaglecenter.org/eagle-viewing.
Hi, folks. This is Kirk Bankstad from the Minocqua Brewing Company, and I sell Choice Hard Seltzer. Choice is an all-natural, 105-calorie grapefruit-flavored hard seltzer for those who believe that a woman's reproductive decisions should remain a private matter between her and her doctor. When you purchase Choice Hard Seltzer, 5% of the proceeds go to support reproductive rights organizations in Minnesota.
Drink progressively with Minocqua Brewing. Get Choice Hard Seltzer at Lake Wine and Spirits in Uptown and Falls Liquor in Minneapolis. Find other Twin Cities locations at MinocquaBrewingCompany.com.
Hello, this is Ellie Krug with Ellie 2.0 Radio. Now my show will be on Saturdays from 10 to 11 and replayed on Sundays from 1 to 2. You will get to the best of Ellie 2.0 with talking about idealism, with guests who come in and who are idealistic, who are trying to change the world, and you will get me, Super Idealist. Tune in. We can't wait to hear from you, and you'll hear from me Saturdays from 10 to 11.
Next Chapter Booksellers has lots of new books in stock just in time for fall. And while we're sad to see summer go, the colder weather does make better reading weather. So stop by the store off Snelling and Grand in St. Paul. Browse the shelves, or if you're not sure what to get, ask a friendly bookseller. We're great at making recommendations no matter your taste. Next Chapter Booksellers also has a wide variety of puzzles, games, and even some early holiday shopping gift ideas. That's the independently owned Next Chapter Booksellers in St. Paul.
Hi, I'm Kelly Tinky.
And I'm Joe Kirk.
Tune in to AM 950's newest show, Searching for Service, a show designed to help current and future Rotarians find purpose through service.
We are dedicated to sharing stories, experiences, and opportunities for those searching for purpose, value, and meaning.
But more importantly, connection through community. Tune in Sundays at 3 p.m. or anytime via podcasts.
It's time to stop searching and start serving.
AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. I'm on drums. You're playing bass, right?
Yeah, gotta be bass.
Did you use a keyboard on the bass? It almost sounds like a synthesizer bass.
It's the mystery of the production.
Oh, you don't remember? We were really wasted, man.
Yeah.
I barely remember. Yeah, so we were talking about the debates that are going on. We're hot and heavy right now in it. And another thing I can give you from my perspective of having to be in debates like this back when I ran is it's really scary and nerve-wracking. And it's terrifying because you have one chance. And if you say something stupid, there's going to be a lot of attention paid to it. And so if you can get in something that really makes a good point and can be backed up by facts, that's a huge, huge win in a debate. Normally, you're just trying to get through the debate and hope that you don't start anything on fire on camera, And so I thought this moment here pretty much because, again, Scott Jensen just kind of spouts the same lies that he tells in real life, whereas this little segment from Governor Walz got in, and I think it kind of sums up probably the whole debate.
When Scott was issuing opioid prescriptions, he issued more than 94% of his peers. He did that at the same time while accepting meals from the manufacturers and the pharmaceutical companies, whining and dining on expensive meals. And then he did an expose that was in the Minneapolis Star-Tribune that was entitled Confessions of a Prescription Drug Pusher, where Scott acknowledged that their impact on him and marketing impacted his prescribing of those. It's getting at the front end of this. It's understanding why it got it out there. It's doing what the state of Minnesota did, suing and then putting in processes to both capture the opioids before they get there and working with folks who are in recovery. Minnesota can do that.
That's a superb segment that he got in, and a very big accomplishment, because another thing about debates, and if you remember back in 2012 when Obama was debating Mitt Romney. The very first time it happened, Mitt Romney kind of came off the blocks running, pretty hard, and he did actually a really good job. And Obama seemed really off his game because Obama's good at debating, but he just wasn't his normal self. And that happens a lot because he's being president while Mitt Romney's doing nothing but getting ready for the debate and has a team of people helping him get ready for the debate. And that's how Jim Schultz had his script written. And that's how Jensen has his little script written. They have their things that they're going to say, and they work on them. And they have, their campaign people are helping them. They might even be rehearsing it. Whereas, Tim Walz is being the governor on top of trying to campaign. So he's got way less time to get ready for the debate. It's kind of like, okay, I got to do this. I got to be up here and do this. I got to do all this stuff. And I got to sign these papers. And then I got to go to the debate, bit of an exaggeration, but just want to point all that out. I'm hearing the buzz still from that. You have that. Yeah, there we go. It's kind of freaking me out. I didn't know if it was in my head or if it was in my headphones. So there, I also wanted to, there's some more detail about, I don't know if I'm going to be able to find it, but there are more details about what I talked about. Let's see if I can find it real quick. Please forgive me for doing this. Well, I don't have the story open, but there are more details about what happened with Enbridge, and I wanted to talk a little bit about that. But that's a big breakthrough and a big feather in the cap for Keith Ellison. In reality, let's see if I can. I'm gonna try one more time to see if I can. Yeah. Oh, I found it. Okay. No, this isn't a clip. This is just me reading. So digging a little bit deeper, I did mention this yesterday. Enbridge will pay more than $7 million to address environmental damage from building the Line 3 oil pipeline across northern Minnesota last year, and it now faces a criminal charge related to a breached aquifer where groundwater continues to flow. State environmental regulators in the Fond du Lac band of Lake Superior, Chippewa, and Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison announced the new penalties and agreements on last Thursday. They said they want to hold the company accountable for violating state and tribal water and environmental rules, but some also acknowledge limited authority to act. The new payments are in addition to the $3 million the Canadian oil pipeline operator was forced to pay in a previous enforced action related to some of the same problems, bringing total payments to more than $11 million. The new payments, which go to the tribe and two state agencies, which is the MPCA and the DNR, which is Minnesota Pollution Control Agency and the Department of Natural Resources. Line 3 replacement pipeline was one of the largest construction projects in recent state history and generated fierce environmental opposition. We know all that. The new payments, which go to the tribe and the state agencies, include fines, but mostly will go to environmental projects and set aside financial assurances to cover future work. So we're going to try and keep them in line in the future. One thing is that Keith Ellison knew that they could get a better deal if they did not try and take it to court. So he went at them by making a deal and came out with better results. A very shrewd move by the Attorney General, the current Attorney General, who knows how to do the Attorney General job, who understands what the job is all about, as opposed to his opponent. So that's all the time we have for today. I'm Todd Mikkelson, sitting in for Matt McNeil. Tomorrow, we're going to have Kelly Morrison on, if everything goes as planned, and I will see you then.
This is New Beginnings, hosted by award-winning broadcaster and speaker Freddie Bell.
Freddie, this generation of the baby boomers, people are living longer, so the baby boomers are taking care of elderly parents.